Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe and turn on notification. Oliver Vance always thought he knew his wife. It was a foundational belief. The kind of load-bearing certainty upon which he'd constructed his entire adult life. He was a risk analyst for a global insurance firm. His profession was the science of quantifying uncertainty, of turning chaos into predictable patterns. He spent 10 hours a day modeling disasters, market collapses, natural catastrophes, human error. His life outside of that office was meant to be the opposite. It was meant to be his one perfect, mitigated risk. 5 years of marriage, countless dinners, where the wine flowed as easily as the conversation. Plans for a future, sketched out on the back of receipts in dimly lit restaurants. Back when they were just two young lovers in London, dreaming of a life less ordinary. He was 37, a man who organized his world with the same meticulous precision he used to build financial models. Every shirt in his closet, arranged by color and season. Every investment in his portfolio, balanced to the decimal point. And Thea, his 33-year-old wife, a freelance photographer. She was the antithesis of his order. A beautiful, vibrant chaos that swept into his structured existence. A whirlwind of late-night creative bursts, spontaneous weekend trips, and a passion for finding beauty in the overlooked corners of the world. He had always seen their dynamic as symbiotic. She needed his stability, his anchor. He needed her color, her wind. At least, that was the narrative he'd sold himself. The trip to the Amalfi Coast had been an old promise, a recurring line item in their 5-year plan. Ever since their engagement, when he had seen a photograph of Positano, he had vowed to take her there. He would give her that perfect, sun-drenched beauty to capture through her lens. When Thea spoke of Italy, her eyes took on a particular sparkle, a light that made him feel capable of anything, that made him want to move mountains, just to see it directed at him. When they finally aligned his vacation time with a lull in her commissions, they booked 2 full weeks. No family obligations. No looming work deadlines that couldn't wait. Just the two of them, celebrating 5 years together. In un distant paradis. The flight from London to Naples was filled with Thea's palpable excitement. She didn't flip through magazines. She sketched in her notebook. The curve of a wing against the clouds. The face of a sleeping passenger. She talked about the quality of the light in southern Italy. The cerulean blue of the sea. The ancient stories held in the cobblestone streets. Oliver smiled, feeling the deep satisfaction of a project manager, watching a complex plan come to fruition. He was delivering on his promise. The hotel they chose was a boutique villa, carved into the cliffs, promising seclusion and an uninterrupted ocean view. At check-in, the concierge, a polished man named Giordano, mentioned the availability of private guides for boat tours to secluded coves and islands, places inaccessible to the larger tourist ferries. Thea's interest was immediate, absolute. "Oh, we have to do that," she'd said, her hand finding his. "Imagine the photos, Oliver. A place no one else gets to see, all dawn." And that was how they met Leo. He appeared in the hotel lobby the next morning. Punctual. 9 o'clock. Oliver assessed him with the practiced eye of a man who evaluates threats for a living. Leo was perhaps 30. With sun-weathered skin, and dark, sea-tossed hair that seemed native to the coastline. He had an easy, confident posture, and a smile that revealed impossibly white teeth. He wore a simple linen shirt that did little to hide a physique sculpted by years of swimming and hauling ropes. He spoke English with a musical Italian accent that Oliver immediately found irritatingly charming. He noticed the way Thea's smile brightened when she greeted him. The way her gaze, the gaze of an artist studying a subject, lingered for a fraction of a second too long. Oliver registered it as a data point, then filed it away under unsubstantiated paranoia. M0. His wife was a photographer. She appreciated aesthetics. That's all it was. Their first excursion was to a private cove that Leo called the Grotta Silenziosa, the Silent Grotto. He explained that very few tourists knew of its existence. Reachable only by a small, classic wooden boat, a gozzo. which he piloted himself, with practiced ease. The journey took 40 minutes. The salty Mediterranean wind whipping across their faces, the sun already warm on their skin. When they arrived, Oliver understood the name. It was a perfect crescent of white pebbles, shielded by towering limestone cliffs. The water was so impossibly clear, you could see the shadows of fish dancing on the seabed, meters below. There was no one else. The silence was profound, broken only by the gentle lapping of waves, and the distant cry of a gull. It was a paradise, engineered for privacy. Leo anchored the boat and helped them ashore. Thea was radiant. She spun in a circle on the pebbles, her arms thrown wide, laughing with a pure, uninhibited joy that made Oliver's heart swell. He had done this. He had given her this moment. He raised his phone to take pictures of her. Capturing the happiness he believed was a direct result of his planning. Then, without a word of warning, Thea began to remove her clothes. First, the light sundress, dropped in a heap on the stones. Then, the top of her bikini, then the bottom. Within seconds, she was completely naked, running toward the crystalline water, with a freedom Oliver had never witnessed in their 5 years of marriage. He froze. His mind, trained to process information and react, simply stopped. His eyes automatically darted to Leo, who was watching the scene, with an expression Oliver couldn't decipher. It wasn't lust. Not overtly. It was something more like quiet appreciation. The look of a connoisseur. The guide quickly averted his gaze, but not before Oliver saw it. A hot flush of shame, confusion, and something darker, something he refused to name, crept up Oliver's neck. Thea was swimming far out now, seemingly oblivious to the suffocating tension she had created on the shore. Or perhaps, his analytical mind suggested, she was not oblivious at all. The rest of the day was a study in discomfort. For Oliver, Thea eventually returned from the water, sunbathed naked for what felt to him like an eternity, and then, as casually as if she were changing her shoes, put her clothes back on. She chatted animatedly with Leo about local life, about fishing, about history. Oliver's responses became monosyllabic. His mind was caught in a loop, replaying the scene of her nakedness, analyzing the variables. Who was this woman? Where was the Thea he thought he knew? That night, back in the cool marble sanctuary of their hotel room, he couldn't contain it any longer. The moment the door clicked shut, he turned to her, his jaw tight. What was that today, Thea? She was at the vanity, removing her earrings. And she met his gaze in the reflection. Her expression was one of genuine surprise. What was what? You know exactly what I'm talking about, he said, his voice low and controlled. You took off every stitch of clothing. In front of a man we just met. Thea laughed. It was a light, airy sound that cut into him like 1,000 tiny blades. Oliver, for God's sake. We were on a completely deserted beach. It was just Leo. I'm sure he's seen it 100 times. You need to relax. Relax? The word felt foreign in his mouth. You were completely exposed in front of another man. And I'm the one who needs to relax. She turned to face him directly. A patient, almost mocking smile on her face. We're in paradise, Oliver. We're supposed to be living in the moment. You spend your whole life controlling everything, worrying about risk and perception. For once in your life, can't we just be free? He opened his mouth to argue, to tell her that freedom and recklessness were not the same thing. But the words wouldn't come. She had already turned back to the mirror, signaling that, in her mind, the conversation was over. He stood there, feeling like a stranger in his own marriage. An unwelcome auditor in someone else's life. The next night, determined to reset the tone, to salvage his perfectly planned trip, Oliver booked a table at a celebrated local restaurant. The menu was a testament to the sea. And Oliver, trying to embrace the spirit of spontaneity Thea preached, ordered a generous plate of fruity de mer. It was exquisite. A taste of the ocean itself. He ate every last bite while Thea picked at a salad. For a few hours, he almost forgot the gnawing discomfort from the day before. The forgetting lasted until 3 o'clock in the morning, when he woke up with a violent rebellion in his stomach. He barely made it to the bathroom. He spent the entire night on the cold bathroom floor, alternating between feverish sweats and shivering chills, cursing the pasta, and his own misguided attempt to be spontaneous. When the sun rose, Oliver was a pale, exhausted wreck. Thea, already dressed, sat on the edge of the bed. "You need to rest," she said softly. "I'm going to go out and buy some water. And maybe some medicine. There's a pharmacia just down the road." He murmured his agreement. He heard the hotel room door click shut, and surrendered to a restless, dream-filled sleep. In his dreams, he was running after Thea along an endless, pebbled beach. But she was always just out of reach. Her laughter, echoing on the wind. He woke in the early afternoon. His mouth dry, his muscles aching. The room was silent. And empty. He squinted at the bedside clock. Almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Thea had left at 8 that morning. 6 hours. 6 hours. To buy water and medicine from a pharmacy a 10-minute walk away. The calculation was simple. And the result was unsettling. He sat up with a groan and reached for his phone. No messages. He sent a short text. "Where are you?" The reply came 20 minutes later. "Exploring the old town. The light was too perfect to waste. Heading back soon. How are you feeling?" He replied that he was better, and lay back down. The excuse, plausible enough to quiet the alarms in his head, but not to silence them completely. She returned around 5 o'clock, carrying a small bag. Her face was flushed from the sundae, and there was a vibrant glow in her eyes that he attributed to her photographic excursion. She was gentle and attentive, brewing him tea, making sure he ate. Oliver wanted to ask about her day, to ask what she'd really done for 6 hours. But the physical exhaustion was too great. He fell asleep again, leaving the questions unasked. On the third day, still weak but able to walk, Oliver insisted they leave the hotel. They explored the local town, this time without a guide. Thea was affectionate, holding his hand as they navigated the narrow, winding streets. She took photos of the two of them, laughing at his weak jokes. Oliver began to relax. Maybe he had overreacted. Maybe Thea was right. Maybe he was too controlling. After all, she was here with him now, present and loving. The memory of that first day, and the 6-hour void, began to feel like a fever dream. The following days settled into a pleasant routine. They visited the ruins of Pompeii, explored the streets of Sorrento. Oliver religiously avoided all seafood. They did not hire a guide again. A silent, mutual decision that brought him a secret sense of relief. The sharp edges of his suspicion began to dull, replaced by the warm, fuzzy glow of genuinely happy moments with his wife. On the last day of their trip, as they were packing their bags, the phone rang. It was the front desk, informing him that someone was waiting for Mr. Vance in the lobby. He was confused. He wasn't expecting anyone. He told Thea he'd be right back and took the elevator down. He found Leo sitting in one of the plush lobby armchairs. He looked visibly uncomfortable, his usual easy smile entirely absent. "Leo," Oliver said, approaching him, "is everything all right?" The guide shot to his feet, avoiding Oliver's eyes. "Mr. Vance, I must speak with you, privately, please." An icy chill. The kind of primal instinct that bypasses all logic and analysis, prickled Oliver's skin. He nodded, and the two men walked in silence out to the hotel's terrace. Leo stopped at the railing, staring out at the horizon, as if summoning courage from the endless blue expanse. "What's this about, Leo?" Oliver's voice was steady, betraying nothing. Leo took a deep, shuddering breath and finally turned to look at him. His eyes were heavy with a guilt that seemed to physically weigh him down. "Mr. Vance, I must be honest with you. What I am about to tell you will hurt you. And for this, I am truly sorry. But my conscience, it will not let me be silent." "Andy." Oliver's heart began to pound. A heavy, frantic drum against his ribs. "Just say it." "The day you were sick," Leo began, his voice barely a whisper. "Your wife, Thea, she came to find me. She had my number from our first tour. She called me early in the morning. She asked me to take her back to the island. The silent grotto." Oliver couldn't breathe. His hands gripped the cool iron of the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. "Go on." "I took her. I thought it was just another tour. For her photography. But when we got there." Leo swiped a hand over his face, his expression tormented. Mr. Vance, your wife. She seduced me. We were, together. On the beach. Intimately. I know I have no excuse. I should have refused. But she was very insistent. And I was weak. On that sun-drenched terrace. With the scent of lemon groves hanging in the air. Oliver Vance's carefully constructed world did not just crack. It disintegrated. Every word from Leo was a physical blow. Worse than any food poisoning. He saw it all in his mind's eye with sickening clarity. Thea and Leo. On that perfect, pebbled beach. The same beach where she had stripped naked in front of him. Now it made sense. It wasn't an act of freedom. It was a test. An audition. An invitation. She had been gauging his reaction, testing the boundaries, before she crossed them. Why are you telling me this? Oliver's voice came out as a hoarse rasp, unrecognizable to his own ears. Because you seem a good man, Leo said, his gaze finally steady, filled with a miserable sincerity. Because I cannot live with this lie. You leave today, and the truth, it must be said. You deserve to know who the woman you are married to really is. Oliver remained silent for several long minutes, processing the information not with his heart, but with his analytical brain. The puzzle pieces didn't just fall into place. They slammed together with the force of a tectonic shift. Leo stood beside him, respecting the devastating silence. Thank you for your honesty. Oliver said finally. The words were automatic. Devoid of emotion. Like a line from a script. Leo nodded sadly. And turned, walking away, leaving Oliver alone with the wreckage. The Italian sun still shone. The waves still crashed against the cliffs below. The world kept turning. While Oliver's marriage crumbled in the silence. He rode the elevator back up to their room. He found Thea humming softly as she zipped up her suitcase. She smiled when she saw him. Who was that? She asked casually. No one important, he replied, his tone flat and cold. Let's go. The taxi to the airport will be here in an hour. If Thea noticed the glacial shift in his demeanor, she didn't let on. Or perhaps, she was simply too preoccupied with guarding her own secret. The return flight to London was a 9-hour exercise in supreme self-control. Oliver sat beside the woman who had betrayed him, breathing the same recycled air, pretending that everything was normal. Thea tried to initiate conversation several times, commenting on the photos she'd taken, the places they had seen. Oliver replied in monosyllables, his eyes fixed on the flight map on the screen in front of him, or staring out the window at the endless expanse of clouds. Oliver, are you all right? She finally asked, placing a hand on his arm. You're so quiet. He flinched internally at her touch, but didn't move. Tired. Long trip. She seemed to accept the explanation, retracting her hand and turning back to her movie. Oliver closed his eyes, feigning sleep, while his mind replayed every moment of the trip through the new, brutal lens of the truth. Thea's bright smile at Leo. The deliberate nudity. Her insistence that he needed to relax. The 6-hour absence. It all clicked. The clear, horrifying logic of a well-executed plan. They landed at Heathrow late at night. They collected their bags in a tense silence. Found their car. Drove home through the rain-slicked London streets without exchanging more than a few necessary words. Thea yawned, blaming it on jet lag. Oliver drove on autopilot. Each mile bringing him closer to the inevitable confrontation he was already planning in his head. They arrived home just before midnight. The apartment was exactly as they had left it. Clean. Orderly. The quiet testament to a life he now saw as a complete fabrication. Oliver dropped their suitcases in the middle of the living room, and made no move to unpack. I'm exhausted, Thea said with a stretch. I'm going to take a quick shower and collapse. Are you coming? Sit down, Thea. The tone of his voice made her freeze. It was a tone she had never heard before. It wasn't anger, it was something far colder. Far more final, a clinical precision that cut through the air like a surgeon's scalpel. She turned slowly and met his eyes. What she saw there made her swallow hard. What is it? Sit down. Now. She obeyed, sinking onto the sofa while Oliver remained standing. A calculated distance between them, mirroring the emotional chasm that had opened up. Leo came to the hotel today. Before we left. The color drained from Thea's face. Instantly. Her lips parted, but no sound emerged. He told me everything, Thea, Oliver continued, his voice relentlessly calm. Every detail. How you called him on the day I was sick. How you had him take you back to that island. How the two of you were together, there. On the same beach where you paraded your naked body in front of me just days before. Armin. Oliver, I can explain. Can you? He tilted his head, his expression one of almost academic curiosity. I am genuinely interested to hear what possible explanation there could be for this. Please. Enlighten me. She stammered. Tears beginning to well in her eyes and streamed down her face. Oliver watched. Unmoved. He felt the pain, of course it was a gaping wound inside him, but he refused to show it. It was a liability. It was a terrible mistake. She sobbed. I don't even know what came over me. The place, the freedom. I got carried away. Carried away, Oliver repeated the words slowly, as if analyzing a foreign phrase. An interesting choice of words. As if you were a passive object. A leaf in the wind. And not an adult woman, making a series of conscious, deliberate choices. Oliver, please. Instals. Please what, Thea? Please forgive you. Please forget. Please pretend you didn't commit adultery. While I was violently ill in a hotel bathroom hundreds of miles from home? She was sobbing uncontrollably now, her face buried in her hands. Oliver remained still. A statue of cold resolve. You planned it, didn't you? The performance on the first day, stripping naked in front of him. That was an invitation. A preview of what you intended. You wanted to see how I would react. If I would forbid it, so you could call me controlling. And use it to justify what you had already decided to do. It wasn't like that. Then tell me how it was. Because from my perspective, you engineered every step. And when the perfect opportunity presented itself when I was incapacitated, you ran to him, without a moment's hesitation. Thea lifted her tear-streaked face. It was one time. Just once. And I regretted it the moment it happened. Oliver, you're my husband. I love you. And Oliver laughed. A dry, hollow sound, completely devoid of humor. Love. You use that word as if it still has any meaning coming from you. Let me tell you what love means to me, Thea. It means when you're sick, I take care of you. It means when you're vulnerable, I protect you. It does not mean seizing the first opportunity to cheat with a stranger on a paradise beach. What are you going to do? The question hung in the air between them, fragile and terrified. He let the silence stretch. Before he delivered his verdict. On Monday morning, I will be retaining a divorce solicitor. I will be documenting everything that has occurred. And I will be ending this marriage, as cleanly and efficiently as possible. Oliver, no. Please. We can try therapy. We can work through this. 5 years, Oliver. Don't throw away 5 years, because of one mistake. He took a step toward her then. The first since the conversation began. And leaned down until his face was level with hers. You threw away 5 years, Thea. Not me. You made that choice on that beach. Now, you will live with the consequences. He straightened up and walked toward their bedroom. He stopped at the door without turning back. I'll sleep on the sofa tonight. Tomorrow, one of us needs to find another place to stay. I strongly suggest it be you. He went into the room, retrieved a pillow and a blanket, and returned to the living room. Thea was still on the sofa, a crumpled, weeping figure. He ignored her, methodically made his bed on the smaller couch, and lay down on his back, facing away from her. Oliver. Her voice was a broken whisper. Good night, Thea, he said to the wall. He closed his eyes, knowing sleep was an impossibility. Not tonight. Not for a long time. But the decision was made. As clear and unchangeable as the waters of that cursed Italian cove. The marriage had died on that distant beach. All that was left was the paperwork. In the months that followed, the divorce unfolded with the grim efficiency of one of Oliver's risk mitigation plans. It was methodical, documented, undeniable. Thea, perhaps out of guilt, or perhaps realizing the futility of fighting, didn't contest it. The apartment, along with the majority of their shared assets, remained with Oliver. She moved into a small flat in a different part of the city. He never heard what happened to Leo. He never cared to find out. 6 months after the trip, Oliver was sitting on the same sofa where he had confronted Thea. Staring at the walls she had painted. The art she had chosen. He needed to redecorate, he thought numbly. Erase the last traces of her. Start over. His phone buzzed. A message from a coworker, inviting him out for drinks. His default response for the past 6 months had been a polite decline. But tonight, something shifted inside him. He typed back a simple affirmative. And stood up to get dressed. On his way to the pub, he passed a travel agency. In the brightly lit window, a large poster advertised the Amalfi Coast. A picture of a cliffside town, drenched in golden light. The sea, a perfect, impossible blue. He stopped for a moment, looking at the image. He didn't feel the sharp, stabbing pain of the first few months. He felt only a dull, familiar emptiness. And the weight of a lesson burned into his memory. Paradises can conceal the worst kinds of hell. And the people you think you know can be the greatest strangers of all. He kept walking, leaving the poster behind. Italy would forever be the place where he learned that 5 years of certainty could be erased by a single day of betrayal. But London, his city, his job, his rebuilt life was where he chose to be now. He was alone, and he was hurt. But he was free from a lie. Thea's betrayal did not define Oliver Vance, but how he handled it with cold dignity and unwavering determination defined the man he was becoming. And that man, despite everything, still believed he deserved something better. He deserved truth. He deserved respect. For the first time in months. As he pushed open the heavy wooden door of the pub, and was greeted by the familiar, friendly faces of his colleagues, Oliver smiled. It was not a wide, genuine smile. Not yet. But it was a beginning. And beginnings, as he had learned in the hardest way imaginable, were all you needed to build something new. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next.